Welcome to the WADT podcast. Today we're going to be doing the final installment of the book club based on the book How to Talk So Kids Will Listen and How to Listen So Kids Will Talk. So hi Hafiz.
Hi, Parksen.
Today is on problem solving, so let's solve some problems.
Yeah, it seems that the book uh, it talks about how problem solving can be an approach for difficult situations when you deal with your kids, trying to resolve some of the issues and dealing with your kids. So I thought problem solving is always being done by not adults as well as grown up kids lah. But the book is suggesting that it can be done by any age, at any age. And I think as we go along, we will give some examples. Yeah.
I think the thing to remember or bear in mind is that as parents, our goal is really to raise our kids and to become independent adults one day. And we have this window of opportunity, which is many number of years, and we should not wait till the last minute, when they're about to get married and move out before we equip them. So the equipping process begins from day one. As early as possible, we begin to equip them. I conduct a workshop called Training the Young Brain, where I help parents to understand about the executive functions in a child, basic skills like delay gratification, thinking, critical thinking, working memory, self-regulation, and all these. And from as early as 1 year old, in fact, the critical window of opportunity is between 1 and 5 years old. Where all these basic skills is called the executive functions needs to be developed in the child. It means you need start to teach the child these things and train them in these areas, because these executive function skills will be very, very important later on in life, like when the child begins to go to school, and then later on become an adult. So problem solving is one of the executive functions, and so it's a skill that a child can be taught to use and develop from as early as possible. So one of the things that we parents we tend to do is to take control and take charge, and just tell the child what to do, because we have at least 30 years advantage. Right? We have 30 years of experience more than our children, and so we think that we know everything, and we have got used to telling the child what to do, and they just simply obey, and everything is fine. You see. But so what this book is suggesting, and there's also about 40 years of research behind this, not this book itself, but some other groups of people have done this research to show that this is a very important step, where parents allow the child, doesn't really matter how old, to be part of the process of solving the problem, instead of doing it unilaterally, where the parent just tells the child what to do and the child simply obeys.
Yeah, I think we just make it quite simple actually. Problems happen every day, and we need to put effort in solving those problems. And the book is suggesting simple steps. In fact, 5 steps. But I think there's also a caution that sometimes you just need to do 2 steps. Don't need to go through all the steps. But I thought it's quite useful for the author to remind us that before you go into problem solving, we need to psych ourselves as parents. Okay, that you have to first be prepared to listen, be prepared to accept whatever solution that they give. We may not agree with it, but this book is about how do you you know talk so that kids will listen, and listen so kids will talk. So that's the whole idea, right? We want the kids to talk, all right, about their solution, their ideas. So we have to listen. And secondly, we have to stay clear of judgments. I think, as you said, we have 30, 40 years or 50 years of experience. We tend to make judgment because it seems that based on experience, 1 plus 2 is equal to 3. Okay. But when you deal with people, it's not always so straightforward. And once you have judgment, you make a judgment, people just shut off because you're not listening to their feelings. All right. So the other also steps, maybe we can later also give the example. But I thought it's good that although we solve problem every day, even at work, we have various approaches problem solving. Something different that the book, what do you call that, suggests is that first is to understand the child's feelings. Okay, that means try to understand where they're coming from. Okay, rather than looking in our lens, try to look at their lens. So the only one way is to ask question and wait for a while for the answer to come. And we tend, and this is something that we have the habit sometimes, to ask leading questions. Leading questions means we are expecting a certain answer, and the thing is, our kids know that when we ask the question, leading question, they know that actually we are looking for a certain answer. And if they are old enough, if we try too many times, they will not answer, or they will just give you the answer that you want, and then okay, then I can move on. So these are the the so-called caution before you go into the various steps of problem solving, before
Mm,
you really go to the steps of problem solving. Yeah.
yeah. New Entity is a branding company. They are the ones helping to create a brand for WADT and digital media for all our social media platforms. We will not hesitate to recommend New Entity to anyone, whether you are running a business or a nonprofit or starting a blog or podcast just like us. Its founder, Firdaus Amza, was on our podcast a few weeks back, and here's what he said about business and branding.
I like to compare it to business. It's as if it's two sides of the same coin. Business and branding. You grow your business, you grow your brand at the same time. If you neglect your brand, your business will grow, but you have the flip side, which is not taken care of, and people will see it, and you are going to lose a lot of opportunity because you're not able to make the connection.
Well, I want to share about the research done by Dr. Stuart Eblon and his team. And this 5 steps that is described in this book actually reminds me of Dr. Eblon's 3 steps. Okay. Well, I think step 4 and 5 can be added to, Dr. Stuart Eblon's 3 steps, because that is kind of the later part of it. So when we talk about problems, it's not just everyday problems. The problem includes the behavior of the child. All right. So the behavior of the child to many parents is a problem. My child is always doing this. He doesn't do this, so that is a problem. So this method, this approach can be used to tackle those kinds of problems as well. So let's use a very common situation that parents face with their kids in terms of, let's say you have a son who is spending a lot of time gaming online, all right? And so many parents would say, how do I get him to stop? Okay, so use this method, and the step 1 is talk about your child's feelings and needs. Now, it's not talk about, but get your child to tell you, and so you ask. And Dr. Stuart Eblon actually talks about, he doesn't talk about feelings and needs, but more of concern. All right. So parent and child will share their concerns. So you sit down with your child and just describe the situation. So for example, the parent might say to the child, I've noticed that you spend quite a lot of time gaming, and my concern is, all right. So concern is something that no one can dispute, isn't it? Okay. Your opinion, your rules, and all that, the children can dispute it. The children can rebel against it and resist it. But if you're just sharing your concern, and if it's genuine, I mean, who can dispute it? So imagine the parents saying, my concern is that, it eats into your time, the time that is meant to do your homework and for you to do your revision, and also for you to go to bed, because I don't want you to go to bed late. Okay, so that's a concern, and I think it's a genuine, sincere concern that the parent has. Then now you let the child share his concern, right? So the concern of the child may be, but I have no other time to be with my friends, this is the time, this is the way that I spend, with my friends, and, they call it socializing. In the past, we go to McDonald's to socialize, but today, a lot of kids socialize online. So for boys, it's through online gaming. Okay, so he shares his concern, and so that's where you listen to both sides, what their concerns are, all right, and what they need, and what's really happening underneath or behind the scenes that we might not be aware of.
Yeah. So I think, yeah, the word concern is a strong word, and it describes your feeling. At the same time, be able to bring out, all right, the child's real feelings. So we can say concern, we can say, what you have, what is you're thinking of, what was the feeling that you have when you did this. Try to describe, how you feel. So there are many ways to get these feelings out. So we can try various ways. So once you have get their involvement, I think what's important is their involvement, that we are listening to them, and that they also need to listen to our concern, our feelings, and there is already a common ground. So when you have a common ground, the conflict is being put aside. The problem is, whenever there's a conflict, is a win or lose thing. I will argue my point, you will argue against your point, and there is no way for us to come to reasonable, amicable solution. So the I think not only this book, but many approach of problem solving talks about brainstorming, right? And why brainstorming is so powerful is because most of us have something in our mind, a lot of things in our mind. Only when we think that we are being limited, all right, or someone limit us from saying out what we want, then our thinking stops. Then we do not want to share. So the thing about brainstorming is that you ask your kid, all right, what do you think? Think of any solution that you have in mind, state it, and do not put judgment to any of these. I do not evaluate any of these ideas. Let them just list. You maybe take turns, but it's good for them to list down first. It may take time, and there's no need to rush. Okay, remember, this is a process. I think the process is as important as the result. Okay, and then this is the good thing when we are starting young. Okay, we don't have to rush. The problem is, I think we think that we start late, and and we're trying to rush things, and that's the anxiety comes in. So as spoken before, there's no issue with us starting young and trying to get into this culture of the child's involvement in solving a problem that actually is theirs. Only that we are saying that, okay, it's not about your problem, it's our problem. I think then you can get their attention, right?
Yeah, I think that's one way to say it. Instead of saying it's, you are the problem or your problem, say that, hey son, we have a problem here, we have a situation here, and can we talk about it, and can we, see what can we do about it, so that this situation does not continue. Yeah. So step one and step two is where the two parties, basically the parent and the child, will get equal opportunities, if possible, to talk about how they perceive, and how they understand the situation that the two of them are talking about. Then step three is, according to the book, is brainstorming. So brainstorming is basically making a list of different ideas, possible solutions. Now, Dr. Stuart Eblon does it a little bit differently. Okay. Now, what is in common between Dr. Stuart Eblon in this book is that you let the child be the first to suggest a possible solution. And that is important because when the parent is the first, if the parent is the first one to suggest a possible solution, and if this has always been the case where the parent is the one always telling the child what to do and coming up with answers, then the child would most likely say, well, okay, even though he or she might have some ideas, the child would not say it because the parent has already spoken. And so, all right, since you have spoken, we'll go along with it, and of course the child will not say this. If it doesn't work, well, it's your idea, not mine. All right. So the important thing here is let the child be the first to come up with a possible solution to the situation. Now, Dr. Stuart Eblon does not suggest making a list of possible solutions. What he says is let the child be the first to suggest, and if his idea or her idea is even the slightest, remotest, chance of working, it is workable. It's not perfect. The first idea is never the perfect one. All right. I mean, even in daily life, in our work, when we try to solve problems, how many times our first idea is the perfect one, right? We usually have to go back to the drawing board and tweak it again. So whatever the child suggests, if there is a possibility of it working, just go with it. All right. Don't come up with a list of it. Don't take turns. Child comes with one idea, the parent comes up with an idea, and then the child again another idea, and then in the end you have about 5 or 6 ideas there, and then you start to choose. Now, when you start to choose, again there will be bias, right? The parent will think his ideas are better than the child's ideas. So that might be a possible downside to coming up with a list. So I still like what Dr. Stuart Eblon recommends, that let the child be the first one to suggest a possible solution, and if it's even slightly workable, just go with it. And then give it a time, like, okay, let's try this out for the next 3 days, 1 week, or 2 weeks, depending on what the problem is and what the solution is. Okay. And then we come back again and review it. Okay. And if it's not working completely, then we ask ourselves what needs to be adjusted, what needs to be added to this solution. So, and then after that, we give it a try again for a period of time and then come back. So that is what problem solving really looks like, in real life. So the child gets a real taste of what problem solving is, and he has a, hands-on experience of doing it with the parent. So that's why this is a very, very useful learning experience for the child.
Yeah, I guess the process must be natural, right? I mean, not every child, if we can start telling telling the child, okay, take out a piece of paper and a pen, let's sit down and or write it on the whiteboard, and they begin to think that this is like a classroom, and they sometimes get switched off because of that. Remind them of classroom and the formality and so on, so forth. So you're right, Dr. Ablon is like he's saying that make it something that is on your feet, think on your feet kind of thing. Yeah, for example, and don't rush, don't say that, oh, I want 3 ideas, I want 5 ideas, just one idea will do, then maybe we can talk about options. It's good that you think it's good to have options, ask them again, would you like to have some options, or how do you think if we have other options, that will make them think, right? Yeah, why not, then they start thinking again. So it becomes a natural thinking, developing of a solution process. And as you said, even if it's one idea, what is important is follow through, right? Or follow up, following up. Then the 3 W's lah. When, by when, they're going to do this. Who is supposed to do this, and what exactly is we're going to do. So be clear, and who's accountable for it. So it's no point we come up with a solution and then we don't follow through. Hey listeners, Parksen and I are very excited to tell you about something new that's happening. We have just started a book club and would like you to join us. There are vast amounts of knowledge and wisdom in books that are readily accessible to everyone. Reading is also a way to learn from experts in various fields. Not a reader? No problem. Follow our podcast and listen to the episode where Parksen and I discuss and summarize a book or a portion of a book. We will use that as the starting point for our book club discussion. We will meet on the first Wednesday of every month. Go to our Instagram and Facebook pages to find out how to join. We'll see you there. And now, back to the podcast. Yeah.
Yeah, the follow through is is another another
Challenge,
thing.
right?
I remember there was one time I was talking to my son, and he was about 16 years old, I think, around there. So I was bringing up a few issues with him, and I took out a piece of paper and I started writing. Okay, so about this, what are you going to do about it? So I suggested something. I wrote it down. So can you do this? Okay, he said, yeah. Okay, then about this, can you do this? He said, yes. So after that, I let him sign on that piece of paper to to that he agrees to all these terms and conditions. Then 2 weeks later, I revisited the issues. I said, hey, out of all these things that you agreed to do, none of them you did. I said, why? I said, because they're all your ideas. Okay.
Yeah.
So this is a very important thing, because just like in mediation, right? In mediation, you have a neutral third party sitting down with two of the conflicting or disputing parties, all right, and how the conflict is being resolved is not the solution does not come from the third party. It comes from the two parties. All right. So it's like the parent and the child. All right. They have to come together and they will have to agree on a solution. Okay. And the third party is basically the witness to that. And he or she is there to facilitate that conversation and help them arrive at that solution. Now, what there's found is that through this process, because the two disputing parties are involved in that decision-making process, all right, there is greater ownership, there's greater compliance, and therefore there's greater outcome, as compared to when the solution is imposed on them by someone else, all right, whether it's a judge in the court or someone else, just unilaterally telling them, okay, this is what you do, then there will be less compliance, because they will not be happy. Somebody will not be happy, or both will not be happy, and therefore there will not be such a high level of compliance. Yeah. So that's why I think there's wisdom in this approach, in that, about letting the child be the first to suggest a possible solution. And because this method can be used for very young children, 4 years old, 5 years old, 6 years old. But for young children, if they can come up with one idea, that's a lot already. So to come up with a few ideas, like this brainstorming suggestion, that might be challenging. It might be suitable for older kids, maybe preteens or teenagers, where they have more a wider repertoire of experience and resources to pull from, and therefore they have option A, option B, option C. But for younger children, if they can just come up with one option, that's a lot. So that's why I think that it was suggested by Dr. Eblon that just go with it. If it's even slightly workable, just go with it, and then it's not going to be perfect, but just do it, try it for a period of time, and come back and review, and then adjust, tweak it, make mid-course corrections or whatever. And through this, you are teaching the child, what problem solving looks like. It is a process. Nobody has a ready-made answer in their head somewhere, and all you got to do is pull it out. No, it is a process that you have to go through.
Yeah, I suppose every tool has its use, but also every tool need to be used with wisdom sometimes, especially when you deal with people. We're not talking about hammer and nail kind of situation, right? This kind of tools, problem solving, you have to look into the context. So if let's say there's no agreement, even if they're not prepared to, agree to do something, don't give up. You stick to the process. Show that you are. I mean, we as parents strongly value the process of solving the problem together. That we can be patient with you. We respect that you're not ready. At the same time, giving you time, to think over it. So I think this processes does create character in our children. So this is about character building, right? So it's not like a transaction where one win, one lose, or even both wins. No, it's about a process of character building, and we want some kind of change in the child. If possible, a permanent change, a change that sustains. And this is always something that is not really a challenge, but we like to have. Just that we need to trust the process, trust that our children will grow and learn to understand their own path in life. Sometimes they have to make certain mistakes. I was just telling you this morning, actually, I've been telling my daughter, every time you wake up, three things you must do. And this is always a culture in our house, you have to do three things, take a bath, I'm not, uh, have your breakfast, and, clean up your room. Okay, so she forgot, or she was distracted, by other things. Maybe it's holidays, all right, and she almost fainted, you know. And I didn't take the opportunity to, like, tell her, see what happened when you don't listen to, because this is the very thing that they expect us to say, you know. And we must first understand the emotion. That emotion, at that moment, I know she was very vulnerable. Okay, so just be empathetic. That she's facing that. There'll be a time that you can, give her a lesson or a lecture, or even don't have to do that, but let her think about it, because she's the one who felt that problem. She felt suddenly, I feel so weak, you know, and I don't think a rational person, and our children, we trust that they, at certain point in time, they can be rational, you know. They want that incident to happen again, they want to avoid it, so they know the solution. And see what happens next.
Mm,
See
yeah.
whether she learns and able to improve.
Yeah. You used the word just now, which I want to pick up from, and that word is patient. I think parents need to be patient. Um, because it is easy. It is actually less time consuming when parents just come up with a solution. Oh, I know what to do. You should do this. And I want you to do it this way. I want you to do this, and problem solved. Now, so it's very, it takes very little time. It's very efficient. Now, whether it's effective or not, that remains to be seen. Okay, like we talked about, when it's unilateral, there will be greater resistance. There will be resistance. There will be, non-compliance and things like that. So, using this problem-solving approach, parents need to be patient, because parents tend to want to, solve the problem. Going back to the example of, your child spending a lot of time on online games. All right. So the parent would like it to be totally solved by tomorrow. Okay. Now, if that is your expectation, then, well, I don't think there's any method that can work short of taking the mobile device away from your child. All right. And banning him completely from the device. Okay. And just let him focus on his studies in the meantime. Now that again, you're gonna raise hell, okay, from your child. So not advisable. So if you want to use that problem-solving approach, which has a lot of benefits, like teaching your child how to solve problems. It gives the child a skill and a practice, which will come in very handy in the future about how to solve problems. Okay, then the parents need to be very patient because this is a process. Okay, nothing is going to change overnight. But so parents need to have a long-term view about this, not a short-term one. All right, because parenting in most parts is more like behavior modification. How do I change my child's behavior? Well, behavior modification is one part of it, but I think if you really want to raise a child who will be successfully independent, all right, in the future, then you need to think in terms of training the child and developing essential skills in the child so that he can use them in the future.
Right. So, of course, this is part of our discussion on the book, How to Talk So Kids Will Listen, So Kids Will Talk. And we are into the third chapter only, but a lot have been mentioned, a lot have been discussed. First, we talk about helping children deal with their feelings and emotions, then engaging cooperation and alternatives of punishment. And now we're talking about problem solving. You have to listen to the other episodes and even, of course, read the book to have a more wholesome picture of these the messages and the tips that the book is trying to say. So, Parksen, I think we had a good discussion, and of course we can refer to some of the approaches again as we continue to talk about the other chapters of the book, right? So I believe we can say that so far the book is very balanced in trying to understand that there are various approaches, to getting our kids to listen and to us and be able to change their behavior. And it's about the process. The results is also something that we need to work on and follow through, such that it becomes a learning process of building the character of our children.
That's right. All right. So I hope everyone reads the book and join us for the book club on the first Wednesdays of every month.
Yes. Look forward to it.
Well, you've been listening to the WADT podcast. Thank you for joining us. If you have enjoyed today's episode, be sure to follow us so that you will not miss any future episodes. Also, do let fellow dads know about this podcast. If you would like to react to what you have heard today, just head to one of our social media platforms. We are on Instagram and Facebook. Or you can email us at wearedads2@gmail.com. Also, do let us know what you would like us to discuss in the future podcast episodes. Till the next time, this is Hafiz and Parcsen signing off.